Hey guys, it's Shelbi, otherwise known as Shelbizleee here on YouTube, and I would like to welcome you to my version of Draw My Life. I can all but guarantee you there are going to be things that I have forgot to draw and that I'm going to want to say during the video, so it probably won't be in super fast speed like most people's are. But let's go ahead and get started. So when I was born, I was obviously born to a mother and a father. My parents have been married my whole life. I'm lucky enough to have had it that way. I am the older sibling of the children that my parents had, but my dad did have two children before me and my little sister. He had my brother and my sister, or my half-brother, my half-sister. That's my brother because he's bald and he always wears boots. There's not a whole lot that sticks out to me about my childhood up until 5th grade, other than I remember my parents were able to have us travel more than I think some other people do. We used to go see snow basically every winter break, and we would go to the beach every summer break, whether that be in Florida or in Galveston. So while my memories of traveling are very positive, the other thing that sticks out to me about my childhood is that my mother was an alcoholic. And a lot of my friends growing up thought that was funny or cool, but my mom was never a funny drunk or a relaxed drunk for that matter. She was actually very angry all the time, and she would love to fight with people. And I was usually the target of her anger, and my father was also a target of some sorts. They would fight a lot. I remember a lot of fighting in my childhood, in more ways than one. And like I said, I was usually her target. She knew exactly what to say to me to set me off so that then she could turn around and be like, look, see, Shelby's being the little brat that she is. And she would call me really terrible names and made me feel really shitty about myself. And those are things I think no mother should ever do to their child. The way my mom treated me made me resent her a lot and caused me to lose a lot of respect for her. And I can remember this, and anybody in my family can attest to this, that I was a little brat. I did have a really bad attitude towards my parents, and I was pretty defiant in that way. Looking back now, I can see that those issues I had with my mom, the relationship I had with my mom, caused me to have a lot of control issues, anxiety, and it also caused me to be very defensive when people come at me. And according to my therapist, that relationship I had with my mom led to the next thing that happened in my life that was actually really, really bad. Um, I was at a low place. I didn't have a lot of self confidence, a lot of self worth. I had already been told that I wasn't worth very much by my own mother. So when this guy showed up in my life and told me that he loved me, I went along with it. This boy is known on my channel as Lucifer. I have some story times about what I went through with him. But he told me from like week 1 that he loved me, and that was in 5th grade. But by the time I got to 6th grade, things were very different, and he started showing his true colors. I remember as early as 6th grade, he would call me fat, he would call me ugly, he would try to put me down any way he could. And this is the typical pattern you see from someone who is very manipulative, but it's very strange that this was happening to me at such a young age because usually people that do this are being tactful, but obviously he was too young to have been doing that. In 6th grade, he stabbed me with a pencil. When we were in 9th grade, he punched me in the face. And there are a lot of things that I learned from that relationship that I apply in my life today. I don't always regret going through it because it taught me a lot. But at the time, I was having problems with my mom, and Lucifer told me I couldn't have any friends, so I was all alone and just very sad. During this time in my life, I remember there were 3 people, other than the people who I've already mentioned, that really helped me get through these things, and that would be my aunt and her 2 daughters, my cousins. And later on down the road, one of my cousins had my favorite cousin, but we won't tell them that. In middle school, I got myself in a lot of trouble with boys, which, again, according to my therapist, was me looking for approval in someone. So we'll go ahead and skip those years and go on to when I was a freshman. I was still with Lucifer at this time, and I was also really, really close to my sister. She was essentially one of my best friends, as well as her best friend was one of my best friends because Lucifer didn't let me leave my house or talk to anyone else, so she was essentially like my second sister, and we'll call her Izzy. Izzy lived with my parents at my house for 3 years at least that I can recall. When I say she was like my sister, she quite literally was. But one day, Izzy decided that she didn't want to be part of our family anymore, that she wanted to be part of someone else's family. So her and Lucifer got together. I'm sure you're gathering by now that I've been through quite a bit in my life, but for some reason I feel like I've been able to get past it all and have a decent life. But you can imagine at that time, it was devastating to me. Lucifer and I had been off and on for 5 years, and I had had someone else controlling what I could do and who I was for so long that I forgot who I was. And whenever we broke up, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do without him. But somehow, with the help of my family that I mentioned earlier, I got through it and I was able to see that I was worth more than he let me believe. Starting my sophomore year, I tried out for the drill team and I made it. And then I also joined student council, and those two things quickly became a huge passion of mine. I started making friends again, and I started to realize that there was happiness outside of Lucifer. For some reason, I skipped junior year on this Draw My Life, but between my junior and senior year is when I went to an environmental summer camp, and that was through student council. So many of you guys asked me where that passion came from, and that's the answer, that summer camp between my junior and senior year. But by the time I made it to senior year, as you can see, I felt like a queen. I was president of student council, I was president of drill team, and my life was in a much better place than it had been 2 years prior. I was also voted best dressed at my high school, just saying. I'm drawing a beaker and glasses here because during this time is when I decided I wanted to be an environmental scientist. So I applied to colleges and got into one, and that's when I became a freshman all over again. I was definitely too scared to move too far away from my home, so I went to a college that was literally maybe an hour away from where I lived at the time. But I was so freaking excited to be in college and away from my parents. I was just doing my own thing. Oh, and I left out something. I had a boyfriend during these last 3 years that I didn't mention, and that's very telling as to what type of relationship I had. The guy I was in a relationship was a really good guy, and he still is, but we were just never meant to be together. We were just doing the thing. I don't know, whatever. When I got to college, I was basically like, YOLO, you're like my last priority, which I feel guilty about a little bit, but not, at the same time, not really. I'm drawing glasses because when I got to college, my grades improved significantly. I made the dean's list. I had all A's my first year in college, so I felt really good about that. But then I went to my advisor and he told me we no longer offer environmental science as a major. As you can imagine, this was a problem for me, but my sister was graduating right around that time, and she convinced me to go to the same school she was going to, which was good because I would have someone I knew, and again, it was only an hour away from where I currently lived. So when I got to my new school, I was a junior by this time. I had transferred straight in. I had such good grades. It wasn't a big deal. I continued to be really excited and good at school, and even more so now because I was out of my basics and into doing stuff that really pertained to my major. But even though my grades are really good, my sister still was and always has been the smarter one, so of course she showed me up. Around this time is when me and that boyfriend that I was with finally called it quits. He had been obsessed with me and really infatuated with me from all the time that I could remember in the past. And then basically one day he was like, dude, I'm done with this. I think I will always remember this time in my life as a whirlwind of emotions. I was really figuring out who I was because I was going through a lot, thinking that this boy was in love with me, and then all of a sudden it was gone. I didn't have real feelings for this guy, even though it hit me really hard when we broke up, and that was just because I didn't realize I had never been on my own to figure out who I am. And that caused a lot of anxiety in my life, but it really forced me to figure out who I was. So for the rest of my junior year, I decided I was going to make the most of it. I was going to join all the clubs I could, make all the friends I could. I was living with my sister, her best friend, and my nephew, who is coincidentally my age. And it was a lot of fun living with them. It was always, every time I came home, there was something fun to do, something fun to talk about. And my life got a lot better at that point. Then the absolute best thing that probably has ever happened in my life happened. I went to my first class at my new school, and it was oceanography lab class. And I'm sure you guys can imagine who I met there. The first friend I made at my new school was Madison, who you guys are familiar with if you are a subscriber of this channel. And if you're not, subscribe please, okay, thank you. But yes, this is when I met my current girlfriend, Madison, and it was love at first first sight. No, I'm just kidding, guys. We were actually really good friends off the bat. And at the time, I was, quote, straight, and she was gay, and we both had significant others. So we hit it off really quick. We would hang out basically every weekend, go find new trees to climb, which I know sounds weird, but legit, that's what we did. We went to the beach, and that's my sad attempt at drawing a sandcastle, and we basically started doing everything together. She quickly became my best friend. We also used to go camping and all those sort of fun things. And eventually she became my girlfriend, and that's a really long story. I have a whole video about it on this channel, so if you want to see that, I'll link it in the top right-hand corner. Moving into my senior year in college, I was president of student council again. Well, technically, I had the title of being vice president, but I acted as president. Let's just put it that way. I was also juggling being an intern for something that I really, really loved. I was working on research projects with 2 professors, and then I was being paid to do research with another professor. So yeah, I've always been that kind of person who just likes to keep really, really busy. So I was doing a lot, but I was loving it. I had also finally made a lot of friends that had similar interests as me because they had the same major and all that kind of stuff. But it finally came time for me to graduate, which was obviously a super exciting time in my life, except for the fact that Madison still had a semester of school to go, and we didn't know what we were going to do in the meantime. There were no jobs in the field that I worked in where Madison was going to school, truth be told, and I didn't want to stay in that city any longer, so I finally decided to move away. I accepted an AmeriCorps position in San Jose, California, and I was super excited but also really scared, and I basically moved out there without knowing where I was going to live or how I was going to survive, because if you guys know anything about AmeriCorps, they don't pay very well, but I was still overly excited about it. I'm really not sure why I drew a plane to explain this next part, because we didn't fly. I needed my car to be there with me in California, so we packed up my car a month after my graduation and drove all the way from Texas to San Jose, California. This was like the only amount of time Madison and I didn't live together from the moment we started dating, so it was really different for us, but it gave her a chance to hang out with her friends more and do her thing, and it gave me more time to be by myself and do my thing because she's more a social person. I'm more of an introvert, and it just worked out pretty well for us for the most part. In the meantime, I was working in the San Jose community planting drought-tolerant plants because of the drought that California was in at the time, also educating children about the importance of native plants and what trees do for the environment and all those sort of things. So I was getting to teach about my passion, which is all I could ever ask for. Then my AmeriCorps term was coming to an end and Madison was graduating, so it was time for me to go back home and be with her. We still had our apartment lease, so we had to live there for a little while longer while we were looking for permanent jobs near our hometowns, but the end of our lease kept getting closer and closer and we hadn't heard back from any job. But because the universe was working in our favor and we had good karma, about 2 weeks out from when our lease was ending, I got a call that I got a job, and then a couple days later, Madison got a similar call as well. So we packed up our cars and headed to the city that we live in now. So when we moved is when I got my first grown-up job, my first big girl job, if you will. I was so excited because when I first got into college, this is the exact job I would have wanted when I came out. But it didn't take me long to realize that the real world wasn't all it was cracked up to be, and I got pretty bored with what I was doing pretty quickly. I started realizing there were other things I could be doing on a computer screen, so when I got home from my day job, I picked up another computer and started doing what you guys are watching right now, YouTube. I was pleasantly surprised that the first video I ever made was about a social justice warrior topic. I was really frustrated with the Colin Kaepernick situation, and I felt like I had something to add to the conversation, so I sat down in front of a camera, said how I felt, and that video went off pretty well. I was impressed with how it went. I really love sharing my perspective with other people and getting to hear their feedback and their perspectives, so I kept making YouTube videos until one day I saw a video for dumpster diving from Trina, if you guys know who she is. I had been dumpster diving before, but it didn't take long after seeing that video that I decided to get in the dumpster myself. And that pretty much brings us up to speed with where we are now. I'm obviously still doing YouTube, and I do still have my full-time job. Yes, it gets very overwhelming, but as I said previously, I really do like to keep busy. I don't know if I'll ever switch over to being a full-time YouTuber because I do have a job where I'm fulfilled. It's, I use my degree, it's what I'm passionate about, so who knows, but we'll just see. As long as you guys stay here and watch, I will keep making videos. You guys have given me a new exciting reason to wake up every morning, and I could not be more grateful for that. But I think that pretty much concludes this Draw My Life. So if you guys have any questions or think I missed anything, leave them down below. I will try to get back to you guys, or you can ask me on Snapchat. I'm always talking to you guys there. Make sure you go follow me on Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram. And I will see you guys next time. And remember, create the peace.